You know, I don't want to question the superior wisdom of the BBC, particularly not with Robert here.
Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the 10 times celebrities trolled the BBC.
Everything you could possibly want. Demand 5, Netflix, that.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
For this list, we're looking at times when celebs mocked the BBC. Let us know in the comments whether you think the TV licence should be scrapped. Jerry Springer the Opera. Perhaps the BBC trolled itself a little bit here by deciding to broadcast Stuart Lee's massively outrageous musical in the first place. But Lee was out to troll anybody and everybody, not just Springer, but American culture, his critics, and those at the BBC brave enough to put his work on TV.
This is our Jerry Springer moment.
To be fair, the musical was extremely popular and won many awards, but plenty of people in the UK were still upset to see things like a dancing troupe of KKK members, somebody shooting Jerry Springer with a handgun, and lots of foul language.
I've been shot.
Tens of thousands of people complained to Ofcom, which broke records at the time and got the Beeb in a lot of bother. Noel Edmonds. Though he made his name on BBC shows like Noel's House Party, Noel Edmonds went on record in 2008 saying he outright refuses to pay his TV licence.
Are you currently paying the television licence fee?
I don't have a TV licence, no.
Edmonds said publicly that the reason was that he objected to how the TV licence is collected, using threatening letters to frighten people into paying up, even if they're not someone who needs one.
But we believe that the BBC is sleepwalking its way to destruction, and the BBC will be lost to Britain, and we do not think that that is right.
This was years after he himself had stopped working for the Beeb, meaning it was no longer paying his high salary, and he was condemned by BBC executives.
Noel Edmonds, what do you reckon is the notional value of the BBC if it can be bought?
I have absolutely no idea, Jeremy. Good evening.
Then, a few years later, he threatened to buy the BBC himself and abolish the licence. The broadcaster firmly told him no deal. Susanna Reid quits. She earned her journalistic chops working as a BBC journalist for years and eventually became an on-screen anchor presenting BBC Breakfast.
Some footage emerged yesterday of Susanna's first ever news bulletin 20 years ago.
20 years ago this
on the
year.
BBC.
Many times she declined offers from rival outlets to leave, but finally she was lured away by ITV in 2014.
Good morning. A demonstration by anti-capitalist campaigners is due to start in central London this morning.
She was brought on at the launch of Good Morning Britain, supposedly commanding a £1 million salary. The BBC just couldn't match that offer for Reid, and she's still a major draw to get people to watch GMB instead of sticking with BBC Breakfast.
Look at that, look at your hair.
Oh, Playmobil hair, I call that.
They definitely lost out, as Susanna and Piers Morgan were a morning force to be reckoned with until he quit. Mr. Blobby. He was pretty much invented just to troll the BBC, and indeed anybody else who came into contact with him.
A famous actor visiting my home. I hope the neighbours are watching.
Debuting on Noel's House Party, Mr. Blobby made his reputation by harassing Noel Edmonds and invading the sets of many of the BBC's biggest IPs at the time, wreaking havoc in a series of beloved comedy sketches.
Are we absolutely sure that he got through security properly? Is he allowed to be here?
Hello!
But he's never stopped trolling, even in the now multiple decades since House Party came to a conclusion, and he can troll without the oversight of Edmonds too, including a baffling appearance on BBC News at 10 in which he caused chaos in the studio late at night.
Is he allowed on the set? Oh, you make me nervous. Go back on the catwalk. You're not even allowed to be in this building.
The Maxwells. Because it's always covering current affairs and politics, Have I Got News For You often finds itself poking fun at very contentious events.
Well, that's the two of them leaving the sinking ship.
one might say.
One of these events was the trial of Ian and Kevin Maxwell. Their father, Robert Maxwell, had been embezzling from the pension fund of the Daily Mirror, which the family owned before his death.
The sad news that there's £526 million missing from the Mirror pension fund. There's one suspect.
His sons were put on trial and both ultimately acquitted, but they hadn't been acquitted yet when this 1990s episode aired.
The Maxwell brothers now stand to lose everything, but they promised that the Daily Mirror will still play an important part in their lives. They're going to use it to line their cardboard boxes underneath the arches at Waterloo Station.
A lawsuit was brought against the BBC and the show's production company, and they had to cough up 10 grand each, leaving the BBC red-faced because of things its own comedians had said on air. Right wing.
Most people watching at home who are worried about their bills are going to feel...
Point, Joe. Forgive me. There's a
I'm not being
serious
sarcastic.
Following the ascension of Liz Truss to the Tory party throne in September 2022, comedian Joe Lycett was remarkably invited onto Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg. This was the same day that Truss herself arrived in the BBC studio to talk to Kuenssberg in an unsettlingly friendly interview.
Actually, Liz Truss is stronger than you think. If she gets cracking, gets out there, she might be able to...
Janet.
As well as heckling the country's most short-lived PM, Lycett went on about how he's not one of those snowflake liberal comedians at all, and Kuenssberg has it wrong about him.
I'm actually very right-wing, and I loved it. I thought she was very clear. She gave great, clear answers.
Surprise, surprise, some people were furious about a professional comedian going on television and daring to crack jokes.
You know, the haters will say that you've had 12 years of the Tories and that we're sort of at the dregs of what they've got available, and that Liz Truss is sort of like the backwash of the available MPs. I wouldn't say that because I'm incredibly right-wing.
They shouldn't have got him on in the first place if they didn't want him to do his job. Saxgate. In 2008, Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross trolled not only the BBC, that was employing them at the time on Radio 2, but also another star best known for his work within the BBC, Andrew Sachs, who played Manuel in Fawlty Towers.
I'd like to apologise for these terrible attacks, Andrew Sachs.
Brand and Ross infamously prank-called Sachs live on air, ostensibly for an interview, but they ultimately left a series of inappropriate messages.
I said some things I didn't have oughta, like I had sex with your granddaughter.
This included one where Brand boasted about sleeping with Sachs' granddaughter. The scandal was massive, with the public and politicians complaining in droves.
Have you decided whether or not you'd like to take the matter up with the police?
I have decided. I didn't need to decide. I'm not going to take it anywhere.
The BBC had to pay Ofcom the princely sum of £150,000 because of the outrage, with both Brand and Ross getting themselves suspended. BBC bias. More from Have I Got News For You. In 2017, Ian Hislop came under fire for wanting to know why every single question was poking fun at Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party.
Are there no questions about the Conservatives at all? Is that the new BBC policy?
The BBC is, of course, supposedly non-biased, but when zero questions were asked about the Tories, Hislop brought it up.
The Tories are coming...
Oh, God, I hope not.
We're amazed that this wasn't cut from the programme entirely, as the Tories are just as easy to make fun of as Labour, especially back in 2017 when Theresa May was in charge. He also called out the press for praising a policy when it was announced by the Tories, but condemning the exact same policy when Labour had floated it first.
Yeah, it is. Cap on fuel prices.
Yeah, that was a very bad idea when Ed Miliband announced it.
Yeah.
But now they've announced the same thing. It's a really good idea.
Clarkson.
People in the hotel bar where it happened say he used foul language and told a colleague he'd have him fired in a row over food.
Following Jeremy Clarkson's high-profile departure from the BBC, which came after he punched a producer after a long shoot and didn't have his contract renewed, he's thrown no small number of barbs at the Beeb.
Hello. Back in the spring, as you probably remember, I suddenly became unbusy.
Becoming a spokesman for Amazon Prime because of the Grand Tour, Clarkson famously mocked them in an advert.
Everything you could possibly want. Demand 5, Netflix, that.
He also appeared on Jonathan Ross to joke about how he was secretly glad Top Gear had been failing in his absence, and that he had no sympathy for the BBC for not renewing his contract.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how thrilled are you that Top Gear is nowhere near as successful now that you're not on it?
It's a hard face to pull, this one. Let me try.
They really shot themselves in the foot that time. Oasis. Because of a poorly equipped studio, the BBC famously required its musicians to mind their instruments while on top of the pops. The vocals were broadcast, but the instrumentation wasn't, unless you were a big enough band that you could demand the BBC allow you to play live.
Load up on drugs, kill your friend.
Iron Maiden famously did that, but it was no dice for other bands, despite being just as massive, including Oasis and Nirvana at their heights. Kurt Cobain sang in a bizarre voice during his stint on top of the pops, while Liam and Noel Gallagher notoriously swapped places with each other during a performance of Roll With It in 1995. Producers didn't notice, but in fairness, the brothers do look very similar.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojoUK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.